The most dangerous person in your life is not your worst enemy, your harshest critic, or your biggest competitor. It's not the person who hurt you in the past or the one who doubts you now. The most dangerous person in your life is you, right now, as you sit there. You are either your greatest asset or your deadliest liability. You are either the architect of your success or the engineer of your destruction. Most people will never achieve their dreams, not because the world stopped them, but because they stopped themselves. They will die with their music still inside them, their potential still locked away, their greatness still unexpressed. The graveyard is the richest place on earth, filled with books that were never written, businesses that were never started, and lives that were never truly lived. You have a choice to make right now. Will you join them? Or will you finally stop being your own worst enemy? There was once a warrior who conquered nations, defeated armies, and brought kingdoms to their knees. His name struck fear into the hearts of his enemies, and his victories were spoken of in whispers across distant lands. But there was one enemy this great warrior could never defeat. One opponent who haunted him day and night, who sabotaged his greatest moments and stole his deepest peace. This enemy knew his every weakness, anticipated his every move, and struck him where it hurt the most. The enemy was not a foreign invader or a rival king. The enemy was himself, you see. This warrior would lie awake at night, long after the battles were won, tormented by thoughts of inadequacy. He would question every decision, replay every mistake, and convince himself that his victories were just luck while the world celebrated his achievements. He waged a private war against the voice in his head that told him he was not enough, would never be enough, and didn't deserve the success he had earned. This is not just an ancient tale. This is your story. This is my story. This is the story of every human being who has ever drawn breath on this earth. We are all warriors in the greatest battle ever fought, the war against ourselves right now. As you sit there listening to these words, there is a war raging inside you. It's not the kind of war you can see with your eyes or hear with your ears. It's not the kind of war that makes headlines or gets reported on the evening news. But it is the most important war you will ever fight. Because the outcome of this war determines the outcome of your entire life. Most people spend their whole lives fighting the wrong battles. They fight their circumstances, they fight their past, they fight other people, they fight the economy, they fight the government, they fight the weather, but they never fight the real enemy. They never turn their weapons on the one person who has the power to destroy everything they're trying to build. You want to know why so many talented people never succeed? It's not because they lack ability. It's not because they don't have opportunities. It's not because the world is against them. It's because they are at war with themselves. And in that war, they have chosen to fight for the wrong side. Every morning when you wake up, you have a choice to make. You can either be your own best friend or your own worst enemy. You can either be the voice that encourages you to try or the voice that convinces you to quit. You can either be the force that pushes you forward or the anchor that holds you back. But here's what most people don't understand. The person you're fighting against knows you better than anyone else in the world. This enemy knows your fears before you admit them. They know your insecurities before you acknowledge them. They know exactly what words to whisper in your ear to make you doubt yourself. Exactly what memories to replay to make you feel small. Exactly what scenarios to paint in your mind to make you afraid to try. This enemy has been studying you your entire life. They know that when you were 7 years old, someone laughed at your drawing and you stopped believing you were creative. They know that when you were 12, you tried to sing in front of people and someone said you sounded terrible, so you decided you had no musical talent. They know that when you were 16, you shared your dream with someone you trusted and they told you to be realistic. So you learned to keep your dreams to yourself. Your internal enemy has built a case against you using evidence from your past. They have a file on you thicker than any FBI investigation. every failure, every rejection, every disappointment, every time someone said no, every time you fell short, it's all been carefully documented and weaponized against your future. But what this enemy doesn't want you to know is that they are not fighting fair. They are using outdated information. They are basing their arguments on who you used to be, not who you are becoming. They are presenting evidence from your past as if it's a prediction of your future. The person you were at 7 is not the person you are today. The limitations you had at 12 are not the limitations you have now. The fears that controlled you at 16 do not have to control you at 26, 36, or 66. Yet every day, millions of people surrender to an enemy who's fighting with weapons from decades ago. They allow a voice that was programmed in childhood to make decisions for their adult life. They let someone who couldn't even tie their own shoes make choices about their career, their relationships, and their destiny. This is the cruelest irony of human existence. We become prisoners of wars we won years ago. We keep fighting battles that are already over. We keep defending against attacks that stopped coming long ago. The teacher who said you weren't smart enough is not in the room with you right now. The parent who said you would never amount to anything is not whispering in your ear. The friend who laughed at your dreams is not sitting next to you. But their voices are. Their opinions are. Their judgments are. And you have given them more power over your life than they ever deserved. This is why success is not really about conquering the world. It's about conquering yourself. It's not about defeating everyone else. It's about defeating the version of yourself that believes you can't win. It's not about proving everyone wrong. It's about proving yourself right. The moment you understand that your greatest enemy lives between your ears, everything changes. Because unlike every other battle you will ever fight, this is the one battle where you get to choose which side wins. Now that you know who your real enemy is, let me show you where the battles are being fought inside every human being. There are 3 wars happening simultaneously. And most people don't even realize they're fighting them. These wars determine whether you live a life of greatness or mediocrity, whether you fulfill your potential or waste it, whether you become who you were meant to be or remain trapped as who you've always been. The first war is the war between your dreams and your fears. Every night when you go to sleep, your dreams whisper to you about the life you could live, the impact you could make, the person you could become. But every morning when you wake up, your fears are waiting at the foot of your bed with a long list of reasons why those dreams are impossible, impractical, or insane. Your dreams tell you that you could start that business, write that book, learn that skill, take that risk, make that change. But your fears counter with questions. What if you fail? What if people laugh? What if you're not good enough? What if you lose everything? And most of the time, fear wins the argument before you even get out of bed. But here's what fear doesn't want you to know. Fear is not trying to protect you from failure. Fear is trying to protect you from success. Because success requires you to become someone you've never been before. And fear's job is to keep you exactly where you are. The second war is the war between your potential and your comfort zone. Your potential is like a caged eagle soaring inside you, desperate to spread its wings and fly. But your comfort zone is the cage that keeps you safe, predictable, and small. I heard a story once about a man who found an eagle's egg and placed it in a chicken coop. The eagle hatched alongside the baby chicks and grew up thinking it was a chicken. It spent its days pecking at the ground, flapping its wings just enough to jump a few feet, living the limited life of a barnyard bird. One day, a naturalist visited the farm and saw this magnificent bird among the chickens. He pointed to the eagle and said, "That's not a chicken, that's an eagle, the king of birds." But the farmer laughed and said, "No, that's just one of my chickens. It's never flown a day in its life. The naturalist picked up the eagle and threw it into the air. The eagle flapped frantically and fell back down, running to hide among the chickens. "See," said the farmer, "it's just a chicken." But the naturalist wasn't convinced. The next morning, he took the eagle to the top of the farmhouse roof and threw it off. Again, the eagle flapped desperately and crashed to the ground. Running back to the safety of the chicken coop, on the third day, the naturalist carried the eagle to the top of a high mountain. He held the bird high and said, "You are an eagle. You belong to the sky, not the earth. Spread your wings and fly." Then he hurled the eagle into the air. For a moment, the eagle fell toward the earth. But then something awakened inside it. Its wings caught the wind. Its instincts kicked in. And for the first time in its life, it soared into the heavens where it belonged. That eagle is you. You have been living in a chicken coop of limitations, convinced that small is safe and mediocre is enough. You have been settling for seeds on the ground when you were created to soar above the clouds. Your comfort zone has become your cage, and you have forgotten that you were born to fly. The third war is the war between who you are and who you're becoming. This is perhaps the most confusing battle because it forces you to fight against yourself. Not the bad parts of yourself, but the familiar parts of yourself that no longer serve your future to become the person your dreams require. You must be willing to say goodbye to the person you've always been. You must be willing to outgrow your own identity. You must be willing to disappoint the people who are comfortable with your limitations. This is why change is so difficult. It's not just about learning new skills or adopting new habits. It's about becoming a new person. And the old you will fight tooth and nail to remain in control. The old you is comfortable with excuses. The new you demands results. The old you waits for permission. The new you takes initiative. The old you fears judgment. The new you creates value. The old you seeks approval. The new you trusts their vision every day. These three wars rage inside you. Every decision you make is a vote for which side wins. Every action you take moves you closer to victory or surrender. The question is not whether you're fighting these wars. You are, whether you know it or not. The question is whether you're fighting on the right side. But here's where it gets dangerous. In these internal wars, you are both the soldier and the enemy. You are fighting against yourself with weapons that you created, loaded with ammunition that you provided. Let me show you the arsenal of self-destruction that most people carry into battle against their own success. The first weapon is procrastination. This is your favorite weapon because it doesn't feel like a weapon at all. It feels like wisdom. It feels like being careful. It feels like waiting for the right time. But procrastination is not about timing. It's about fear wearing a disguise. Every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," you're firing a shot at your own dreams. Every time you say, "I'm not ready yet," you're surrendering territory to your limitations. Procrastination whispers sweet lies. You need more preparation. You need more resources. You need more experience. You need more confidence. But the truth is, you'll never feel ready for the things that matter most. The right time is a myth that keeps you trapped in the wrong life. The second weapon is self-doubt. This is the sniper that takes you out from a distance. Self-doubt doesn't need facts or evidence. It specializes in assassination by assumption. It convinces you that you're not qualified before you apply, that you're not talented before you try, that you're not worthy before you even show up. I knew a man who had the voice of an angel. He could make a guitar weep and make a room full of strangers feel like family. But he spent 40 years playing in his garage because he convinced himself he wasn't good enough for the stage. Meanwhile, musicians with half his talent were selling out arenas, not because they were better, but because they didn't carry the weapon of self-doubt. He would listen to the radio and say, "I could do better than that." But when someone suggested he record a demo, he would find 100 reasons why he wasn't ready. When they offered him a chance to perform at a local venue, he would decline because he needed more practice. The tragedy wasn't that the world never heard his music. The tragedy was that he never let himself believe the world deserved to hear it. The third weapon is comparison. This is the poison that turns your uniqueness into inadequacy. When you compare yourself to others, you're not comparing your reality to their reality. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. You're comparing your beginning to their middle. You're comparing your struggle to their success. Comparison steals your joy, your confidence, and your focus. It takes your eyes off your own lane and puts them on someone else's race. It convinces you that because someone else is doing well, there's no room for you to succeed. It makes you believe that their victory somehow diminishes your value. The fourth weapon is negative self-talk. This is the machine gun of self-destruction. Rapid fire, relentless, and devastating. You would never let another person speak to you the way you speak to yourself. You would never tolerate from a friend the criticism you heap on yourself daily. I'm so stupid. I always mess things up. I'm not good at anything. Nobody likes me. I'll never succeed. I should just give up. These are not thoughts. These are bullets you're firing at your own potential. The fifth weapon is settling. This is the most dangerous weapon of all because it feels like peace. It feels like maturity. It feels like being realistic. But settling is not about accepting your circumstances. It's about accepting defeat before the battle is over. When you settle, you're not just giving up on your dreams. You're giving up on yourself. You're saying that who you are right now is all you'll ever be. You're saying that what you have right now is all you deserve. But I didn't come here today to leave you in the battlefield bleeding. I came here to show you how to win. Because every war has a strategy for victory. And the war against yourself is no different. The same mind that has been your greatest enemy can become your most powerful ally. The first step in your victory protocol is developing self-awareness. You cannot defeat an enemy you cannot see. Most people lose the war against themselves because they don't even know they're fighting. They mistake their internal sabotage for external circumstances. They blame their lack of progress on bad luck, wrong timing, or other people's success. But when you develop self-awareness, you become the observer of your own thoughts. You catch yourself in the act of self-destruction. You hear the negative voice before it takes control. You recognize fear when it's dressed up as wisdom. You see procrastination when it's disguised as preparation. Self-awareness is like having a security system in your mind. Every time an enemy thought tries to break in, the alarm goes off. Every time a limiting belief tries to set up camp, you get notified. Every time fear tries to make a decision for you, you intervene. The second step is changing your internal conversation. Your mind is like a radio station that's been playing the same song for years, and it's not a song you like. But you have the power to change the channel. You have the power to become the DJ of your own thoughts. Instead of saying, I can't, start saying, I'm learning how. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, start saying, I'm getting better every day. Instead of saying, what if I fail, start saying, what if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams? This isn't about positive thinking. This is about accurate thinking. When you change your internal conversation, you're not lying to yourself. You're telling yourself the truth about your potential instead of the lies about your limitations. The third step is taking action despite fear. Fear will never give you permission to succeed. Fear will never tell you you're ready. Fear will never approve of your dreams. So stop waiting for fear's approval and start moving in spite of fear's objections. Let me tell you about a woman who was terrified of public speaking. She would break out in a cold sweat at the thought of standing in front of people. Her hands would shake, her voice would crack, and her mind would go blank. But she had a message burning inside her heart that she knew the world needed to hear. So she made a decision. She decided that her message was more important than her fear. She started small, speaking to 5 people, then 10, then 20. Each time, the fear was there, but she spoke anyway. Her voice shook, but she spoke anyway. Today, that woman has spoken to millions of people around the world. She has changed lives, transformed businesses, and inspired movements. Not because she overcame her fear, but because she refused to let her fear overcome her purpose. The 4th step is refusing to negotiate with your limitations. Your limitations are not facts, they are opinions. They are not permanent, they are temporary. They are not laws, they are suggestions. When your mind says, I can't, you say, watch me. When your past says, you've never done this before, you say, there's a first time for everything. When fear says, it's too risky, you say, it's riskier to stay the same. You must become unreasonable with your limitations. You must become uncompromising with your potential. You must become relentless in your pursuit of the person you were created to be. Now let me paint you a picture of what your life looks like when you win this war. When you stop being your own enemy and become your own champion. When you stop fighting against yourself and start fighting for yourself. When you stop sabotaging your dreams and start supporting them. When you win the war against yourself. Everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you change. Not because your circumstances improve, but because your response to your circumstances transforms. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. So let me tell you about Sarah, a woman who fought the greatest war of her life and emerged victorious. Sarah was 35 years old and had spent the last 15 years working in a job that slowly killed her spirit. Every Monday morning felt like a death sentence. Every Friday evening felt like a temporary parole. She had dreams of starting her own business, dreams of making a difference, dreams of living a life that mattered. But every time she thought about making a change, the war inside her head would begin. Her fears would line up like an army. You're too old to start over. You don't have enough money. You don't have the right connections. What if you fail? What if you lose everything? What if people think you're crazy? And for 15 years, fear won every battle. Sarah's procrastination became her favorite weapon of self-destruction. She would spend hours researching business ideas, but never take action on any of them. She would make elaborate plans, but never execute them. She would set deadlines for herself and then find creative ways to postpone them. I need to save more money first, she would tell herself. I need to take more courses. I need to wait until the market is better. Her self-doubt was relentless. She would look at successful entrepreneurs and convince herself that they had something she didn't have. They were smarter, more talented, more connected, more lucky. She would compare her beginning to their middle, her idea to their empire, her fear to their confidence. Her negative self-talk was a constant soundtrack of defeat. Who am I kidding? I'm not entrepreneur material. I'm just an ordinary person with ordinary dreams. I should be grateful for what I have and stop being so selfish. She became her own worst critic, her harshest judge, her most discouraging voice. But one day, something shifted. Sarah was sitting in another meaningless meeting, listening to her boss talk about targets and metrics and quarterly reports, when she realized that she was dying a slow death. Not physically, but spiritually. Every day she stayed in that job, a little more of her soul withered away. Every day she chose safety over significance. She was choosing to betray the person she was meant to become that night. Sarah looked in the mirror and made a decision that changed everything. She decided to stop being her own enemy and start being her own best friend. She decided to stop fighting against her dreams and start fighting for them. She decided to win the war against herself. The first thing Sarah did was develop self-awareness. She started paying attention to her thoughts instead of being controlled by them. When fear whispered, "You can't do this," she would catch it and respond. That's fear talking, not truth. When procrastination suggested maybe next month would be better, she would recognize it and say, "No, the best time is now." She changed her internal conversation. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" she started asking, "What if I succeed?" Instead of saying, "I'm not qualified," she started saying, "I'm learning and growing every day." Instead of focusing on what she lacked, she started focusing on what she had. Passion, determination, and a dream worth fighting for. Sarah took action despite her fear. She didn't wait until she felt confident. She acted her way into confidence. She didn't wait until she felt ready. She got ready by starting. She wrote her business plan while her hands were shaking. She made her first sales call while her voice was trembling. She launched her website while her heart was pounding. She refused to negotiate with her limitations. When her mind said, "You're too old," she pointed to Colonel Sanders, who started KFC at 65. When her bank account said, "You don't have enough money," she reminded herself that some of the greatest companies started in garages with borrowed funds. When her critics said, "You're crazy," she smiled and said, "Thank you for the compliment." The transformation didn't happen overnight. There were days when Sarah wanted to quit. Days when the old fears crept back in. Days when her comfort zone called her name and begged her to return. But she had tasted victory in the war against herself, and she refused to go back to being her own prisoner. 3 years later, Sarah's business had grown beyond her wildest dreams. She had created jobs for other people, solved problems for her customers, and built something that mattered. But the real victory wasn't the money in her bank account or the success of her company. The real victory was the person she had become. Sarah had transformed from someone who was afraid of her own shadow into someone who cast a shadow of influence over others. She had gone from being paralyzed by possibility to being energized by opportunity. She had evolved from being her own worst enemy to being her own greatest advocate. But here's the most beautiful part of Sarah's story. When she won the war against herself, she didn't just change her own life, she changed the lives of everyone around her. Her courage gave others permission to be courageous. Her success showed others that success was possible. Her transformation proved that any life could be transformed. This is what happens when you win the war against yourself. You don't just unlock your own potential, you become a key that unlocks potential in others. You don't just achieve your own dreams, you inspire others to pursue theirs. You don't just transform your own life, you become a catalyst for transformation in your family, your community, your world. The war against yourself is not just about you. It's about everyone whose life you will touch when you become who you were meant to be. It's about everyone who needs what you have to offer. It's about everyone who is waiting for your contribution to make their life better. Right now, as I speak these words, there are people in your future who need you to win this war. There are problems that need your solutions, opportunities that need your vision, dreams that need your courage. But they're all waiting on the other side of your victory over yourself. The war starts now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready, now. The enemy is already armed and dangerous. The battle is already raging. The only question is, which side will you fight for? Will you fight for your fears or your faith? Will you fight for your limitations or your potential? Will you fight for who you've always been or who you're becoming? The choice is yours, the power is yours, the victory is yours, but only if you're willing to fight for it.